Hi everyone, this training session is going to be around our platform analysis tools over here on the left-hand side, and there are three of them. You've got charge comparison, consolidation, switch analysis, and platform due diligence. These two are quite similar to one another. This is for when you've got brand new money going into an investment pot and you want to run a comparison against all of the platforms you're likely to use and all the tiered charges and all the other charges related to an investment solution comparison and suggestion. Consolidation switch analysis is very similar to that, but it involves ceding schemes. You want to compare the costs and charges of where the client currently is versus what you're proposing. And again, the difference in costs and charges of all the different platforms you're looking to use. And then platform due diligence, as the name suggests, it's pretty self-explanatory. It allows you to run your platform due diligence through FE Analytics. So whichever one you select, it will open up a brand new tab and take you directly to that feature. Before we get going on this, though, you'll notice on the left-hand side a number of options, and they're fairly static across all three tools. Now, my comparisons is obviously where we are at the moment, but just to quickly rattle through these before we actually get going. My clients, you have to set up a client, right? So when you're doing a charge comparison or a consolidation, it's related to a particular client. Now, to create a client takes a matter of seconds. You just simply click on add new, first name, surname, date of birth, click on save, and then you can start running those comparisons against that specific client. Charges as well, again, self-explanatory. I've already set one up here, but you can set up as many different types of charges as you like just by clicking add new, and you'll get taken to a fairly simple screen that allows you just to simply input your advisor fees. And you can even tier them as well, which I've done. So, for example, in my imaginary world as an advisor, I charge 0.8% on the first $500,000, but anything over $500,000 gets charged at 0.5. So it's quite flexible. So you can add in your charges here, and this just allows you to drop your charges in to any kind of consolidation work or switch work you do on the tool. My special terms is when you've got a special term with a particular platform. So clearly our system here has all of the tiered charges of all of the different platforms, and they'll be pulled through. But you might have some special rates with a particular platform that you want to use instead of the standard tiered charges. So if you just simply click on add new, you select a list. So yeah, again, in my imaginary world, I use the Aegon platform, and because I give them so much business, they've given me a special rate, so I can see what the standard rate is they give all the other advisors. But for me personally, I can build in the special rates they're giving me, and every single time I run any kind of switch or consolidation work through this tool, it pulls out my special terms and replaces them, and don't use the or doesn't use the Aegon platform special terms that we have up here. So that's, again, something to bear in mind for those of you that have special terms with different platform providers. Exclusions is quite important as well. I've not actually set up any exclusions because I want to show that full list of platforms available when we run through this. But for me, again, in my imaginary world, if I maybe work with three core platforms, let's pick out Aviva, Aegon, and Transact. I don't really care what the other platforms are charging because I'm not likely to use them. So every single time I want to run a charge comparison, a consolidation work, I just want the system to pick out those three platforms. And if that's the case, because that's my centralized investment proposition or retirement proposition, I can build that into the tool and make this configurable around my process. I can add in exclusions. So I can say, look, this year in 2025, we're going to make sure that 7IM is always excluded, all the tax wrappers for these reasons, and I can explain that there. And then we're also going to exclude some of these other providers as well, Fidelity, Hubwise, etc., etc. And again, it's a one and done. It might take you 5 or 10 minutes just to configure that to exclude all the platforms you're not going to be using. But you'll see in a few moments when we run the charge comparison, it's going to be looking at 25 platforms, and it will take a few seconds to run that analysis across all of them. Whereas again, if I'm only going to be using three, I don't care about the other one. So I can just simply have those automatically excluded by using that exclusions tab. The My Portfolios tab is probably the most important one because whenever we run any kind of charge or consolidation work, it's going to ask us what portfolio we want to include within the analysis. So these are all the portfolios I've already built into the system. To build new ones, it's fairly simple. You can either build a dynamic portfolio, which means that whatever share class I'm using to build that portfolio, when it runs the comparison across all platforms, it will pick out the cheapest share class available with the fund that you're using. If you don't want it to do that and you actually are going to use that specific share class across every single platform, then fine, just build a static portfolio, tell it what share class you want to use. And when it runs the charge comparison, it will always use that share class and it won't try and find a related share class that might be cheaper on a particular platform. MPS is, you can basically build MPS, model portfolio solutions, onto the tool. So I can call it, my XYZ balanced MPS solution, what the charge is, and then you can specify the exact platforms that MPS solution is available on, and the relevant charges that that MPS provider is charging me. And now, ultimately, that might take quite a while to build all of your MPS solutions in there. So what we also have, let's just delete that one quickly. Another solution or another option underneath the drop down is pre-configured DFM and pre-configured managed, basically off-platform managed solutions. So under pre-configured DFM, we will build out this list over the coming weeks, months, and years. But at the moment, we've got all of the EBI portfolios, FE Investments, Quilter, and Tatton portfolios built into the system. So if I click on FE Investments, all of these models are being updated for me behind the scenes, so we know what platforms are available on and what the charges are for each one. And then I can just tick on the ones that I need access to, if not all of them, and click on continue. And under my portfolio tab, as if by magic, they're going to be available for me. And all of the charge comparisons I do, you'll see in a few minutes, I'll be able to select those ones. Pre-configured managed are a couple of governed portfolios and some of the LV managed solutions as well, that you can do the same thing with. You've also got off-platform assets as well. So a lot of the times you'll be proposing someone might move into the Pru fund, so you don't care about the 20 or so kind of open platforms. So I can simply pull through the Pru fund into my account here, and then I'll have that available to me to select when I'm proposing a new investment. And just a couple of options down here. You can also build asset-based portfolios as well, kind of proxies that are quite useful. You can explore that in your own time, or import from CSV. If you have a portfolio you're proposing for a client and you've got that in Excel, you can import it directly into here. Probably one of the most useful features we have for you on that basis is back under analytics. If you come to portfolios, any portfolio you've built in the system, if you just click on edit, you've got a new option there, export the FE Advisor asset. Let's wait for this to load up. There we go. I've got 3 funds in my proposed portfolio. If I just click on this button here, I'll just call this proposed portfolio Keith Baker. Put that onto my desktop. That's now saved. Now come back into my analysis tool, choose file. Should be able to find it in here on a P. There we go. And I can just simply hit upload. There it is. Found those 3 funds. I will just simply call this Keith Baker. There we go. So there we go. There's the 3 funds pulled across, 40-40-20 split. I'm just going to call this Keith Baker proposed, and then click on continue. So, and that will add that up there under my portfolio list. Just lastly on here, under my platforms, you can build bespoke platforms as well. So if you've got a platform that isn't the one currently on our tools at the moment, and maybe it's a bespoke platform that's be created for your particular network, you can build those in the tool as well. And that is all of the options on the left-hand side. And you should really start off on these options just to configure the account to make sure that when you're running the charge analysis, it is relevant to what you actually want to see. But once you've done that, if I come back to my comparisons, I'm going to start a brand new comparison today. Just click on Start New. These are all my clients I've built into the system. So we're going to go and grab Keith Baker. And it asks me, what we're going to be recommending to Keith. So maybe in this particular case, we've got an ISA. Given that I've just pulled across his proposed portfolio, we're going to go and grab the proposed portfolio for Keith. That one, Keith Baker proposed portfolio that we just pulled across from analytics. They've got an ISA there of 100,000, and also we want to use a pension. He's maybe got some money to put into a new pension, and you can see here you can even blend assets. So I've blended one of my model portfolio solutions with a Vanguard Life Strategy 80%. So we're going to use that, and he's got 300,000 to go into that pension. What projection basis do we want to use? Well, that's going to pull out the FCA forecasts, so the -1, 2, and 5. That's net of inflation, and we're going to project that over 10 years. Again, you can adjust any of this if need be. Then you can add in your advisor fees. So I've already added my charges under the charges tab, so I can just drop that in there. You can, again, if you wanted to include any of your bespoke platforms that you've created into here, you can add them in there. I can also filter. So before I get my long list of platforms and how much they charge for this particular product, I can filter that out and actually specify that the platforms have to offer me X, Y, and Z before they come through in the analysis. If you're going to be doing any switch work or rebalances with this particular portfolio and you want to add the charge into the analysis, you can add that in here, and family linked accounts and existing accounts can also be included by ticking these boxes. If not, If we click on the next button, that will now run that analysis against all of the platforms on our database, assuming they haven't been excluded, of course, because you may have excluded them under my exclusions. But now it's running the analysis, running the reduction in yield on all of those different providers. Again, cross-wrapper, so we're using an ISA and a pension, but it's aggregating those assets onto each platform and telling us what the results are. And then we'll give you a long list, and it will essentially sort and order them from cheapest to most expensive. So if I just pick the top one, it will then show me what the charges are of each one of those funds, and the solution, the hybrid solution I built with Vanguard and the FEI model portfolio. I can explain the reasons why we're going to be using this moving forward. And if I click on PDF, I can now create a nice little report. If I save that, load that up, and that will show me the report that will basically go through all of the inputs that we went through initially. If we scroll down here, what we're actually offering the client, the proposed portfolio and the model the blend of model portfolio and Vanguard LifeStrat, what their charges are. Then it goes on and explains the charges of the advisor. Then it goes on and explains the charges of the platform. Then it explains any exclusions. Any platforms are excluded from our analysis and the reasons why. In this case, there were fund gaps. Then it will give you the forecast projection rates we're using, and then essentially the reduction in yield rates of all of those different platforms, taking into account all of the tiered charges, all of the solution costs, and the advisor fees as well. So that's the charge comparison. Very quick and easy to run a comparison across multiple different platforms to work out which is the cheapest, and providing the solutions you want to invest your clients' assets into. And let's now take a look at the consolidation tool, which is very similar to this, but it also includes the ceding scheme. So the consolidation switch analysis tool is again on the left-hand side. And as we said earlier, it's very similar to the charge comparison tool. Charge comparison tool is useful if it's just new money going in and there's no recognition of there being existing assets. The consolidation switch analysis tool is there for you when you want to compare where the client currently is with their ceding schemes. Again, cross-wrapper, multiple pots, and where you're proposing they move those pots to. So if you click on that option, it takes you to a very similar screen to the one before. So the same settings on the left-hand side. So that's static. You can run as many consolidation analysis pieces as you like just by clicking Start New. I've already built one that's ready to go down here. So we're just going to load that up because that's already got some ceding schemes built in here. So this will save us some time. So you just need to tell the system what you want this bit of analysis to be called. Now, the client current age will obviously pull through because it knows that already, and how far you want the projection to run to. And then underneath here, you can then start adding as many ceding schemes as you like. So I've got one ISA and two pensions, and you click on Add Ceding Scheme, and it will take you to a screen that looks very much like this, where you put in the product name, the provider name, whether the solution is off platform or platform, when the fund valuation date was taken from, the actual valuation you received, then the timeframes when you want this projection to run to, the projection rates you want to use. So again, if you've sourced projection figures from the ceding scheme, you can select whether they've given you 3 rates, 2 rates, or 1 rate, and what those rates were. If you haven't received projections from ceding schemes, you can simply just add the rates in down here. Then the principles in terms of how the projection is going to be run. You've got 4 different options here. Now, I already know what the charges are for my pensions and my ISAs, so I don't necessarily need to seek projections from existing schemes. I can simply pop in the charge that my provider's given me. It already knows what the value of the pod is and how far it's running to, so it can automatically work out the reduction yield off the back of that figure alone. However, if I have received projections off existing schemes, then I can input, if I click on this option instead, I can input the projected values, and then the system will automatically calculate the ROI. In other words, I can just simply pop in the values here, here, and here, and it will work out the ROI. You can, if you might even have the ROI figure yourself, so you can just simply manually pop in the ROI, you can pop in the charges, or you can actually input both projected values and ROI, and the system will use those values instead. So there's a number of ways of kind of defining how this system is going to operate for you. But in my case, as I said, I've simply got the charges, I've popped those in. Is there advisor remuneration for this? Well, it isn't, because it's a seeding scheme without an advisor. So once you've added all of those seeding schemes, you can then just simply hit next, and it takes you to a screen that looks very similar to the one we started on with the charge comparison, where I'm simply specifying what solutions we want the client to be using instead of the seeding scheme. So for the ISA, I want them to use the FE Investments Model Portfolio 3, and for the pension, I want them to use a blend of the FE Investments Model Portfolio 4 blended with the Vanguard Life strategy, similar to what we used last time. And it aggregates the assets, so it knows that the two pensions equate to 751 and the ISA is 152, so total is 904. It doesn't take the FCA projections. It's a bit smarter than that. It actually amalgamates the seeding schemes and gives you the relevant projections it's going to be using. Then you can add your advisor fees in here, similar to before, add in any bespoke platforms you might be using if necessary. And also, do you want to include filters or switch rebalancing charges, similar to the options we had earlier? Any one of these selected, the moment you click on next, it will just add an extra stage to this process. So this is a filter tool now that I can now filter down the platforms based on their requirements. I don't want to do that on this particular range of analysis though, so I can just simply deselect that. And if none of these tick boxes are selected, it would now take me through to the results page. And similar to what it was doing earlier, it's now going to reference every single platform. It's going to check the availability of those solutions you're using on these different platforms. And then it's going to run the reduction in yield, not just of the proposed solution, but also of the seeding scheme that you're moving that client away from. It does reference the platinum ratings as well. So those platforms that have performed very well on this tool will get platinum ratings each year. But in this case, I'm going to be using Aegon Arc because again, it's sorted it based on cost. So we're going to select Aegon Arc, and again, dissimilar to what we had earlier, where it was just giving me essentially those headline ROI numbers of the proposed solution. It's obviously got the seeding scheme to take into account as well. So within literally a matter of minutes here, I've now got those headline numbers for the seeding scheme. The aggregated cost of those three seeding schemes is costing my client about 1.39. If we aggregate those seeding schemes onto one platform, i.e. Aegon, and make use of the tiered charging that Aegon can offer us, it's going to cut the cost quite considerably down to 1.29. It gives me the critical yield figures in the middle there. Also, it gives me the analysis of per pot. So looking at each pot individually, what the costs are, and obviously because we can aggregate it, it's significantly cheaper if we put all of the three of those pots onto the platform. And then similar to what we had earlier for the charge comparison, I can then start creating PDFs on the results. Let's just click on OK, and that will give me all the analysis I need to explain the different charges that are being taken. So again, I just save that to my desktop. I'll load up this report. I've got my cover page with my logo. Then it goes into detail about those headline numbers down here. So it tells me about the three seeding schemes, or tells my client about the three seeding schemes, how much those seeding schemes are costing, and how much it could potentially cost if we move those assets to a new platform offering, and what the critical yield is underneath. And then again, similar to the other report we were looking at, it then breaks down the solutions we're going to be using and the charges of the actual portfolios. Then it will start looking at the advisor fees and qualifying those. And then because we've picked the Aegon platform, it will then pull out the Aegon charges here. Again, unless you've got a special rate with Aegon, and in that case, it will pull those charges instead. And then same as before, it tells me the platforms that were omitted from that research because of those fund gaps. And then in this case, we ran it on this projection basis, and these were the kind of the league table, for want of a better word, of all of those different platforms. So as you can see, once you've set up any kind of special terms, your portfolios, once you've got your clients in the system, it's incredibly simple to run this type of analysis, this kind of pension switch or consolidation work, where I can very quickly end up with a report similar to this that's justifying to my client, based on the charges, why I'm suggesting they move from their existing seeding schemes to a proposed solution, in this case with Aegon and the Vanguard Life Strat and the FEI model managed by me, the advisor. So they're the charge comparison tools we've got now on FE Analytics. Let's take a look at that third feature, which is platform due diligence. So finally, the last feature we're going to look at today is platform due diligence. And again, as the name suggests, this is when you want to run your regular platform due diligence. Most advisors generally tend to do this yearly. So you can click on that feature, takes you directly to that tool. You'll notice on the left-hand side that features are slightly different now. The settings are And this is because obviously it's no longer relevant to the actual charges of the platform. It's now relating to the evaluation you're going to be running across all of the different platforms as part of your due diligence. So you just need to complete this before you do any evaluations, and only take a couple of minutes. Tell the system a bit about your practice, how many advisors there are in the firm, how many clients you look after, the AUM, then your back office systems as well, because some of the questions that it's going to ask you about the platforms is, does it integrate with your back office? Well, we need to know what back office you use. So in my case, it's IntelliFlow, so I saved that in here. Some of the options are going to be, look, if you work with DFMs, we're going to need to know that, because we're also going to be asking you questions around DFM capabilities. So these are the 3 DFMs I use. And then you've got platform usage as well. So clearly you probably already use some platforms, so tell us which ones you use. Mostly or exclusively, occasionally use, or don't have access to them at all, and then click on next. And then obviously my portfolio, so that's the same tab as we've just explored in the other 2 tools. And this is probably the most important one down here. Take part in our platform service quality survey, because the results, when they get served up to you, are going to tell you about the service quality of the platforms, but that tab will not load up unless you've completed the survey. And I'm pre-warning you this now, because we get so many clients and users of this system calling our help desk and querying, well, I've run the analysis, I've got this huge amount of assessment now, but one of those tabs is blank. Why? Well, it's because you haven't filled in the survey. You have to fill in the survey to get the service quality tab to load up, and all of that rich information to filter through to your full due diligence pack at the very end. And I'll signpost that in a few moments. So yes, before you run any evaluations, complete all of these tabs, including the survey, and then you're ready to run the evaluation itself. Now, before you do this, the entire tool has been built around FCA Fact Sheet 12, so it's probably worthwhile just very quickly skipping into that. So this is a report the FCA put out some years ago to basically specify what they expect advisors to do when they're picking the most suitable platform. And the most important thing to us was this, about platforms, bullet points explaining, paragraph or word for word, sentence by sentence, exactly what they expect of you and what you need to be looking at, including the reputation of the platform, which comes back to that service quality and why you need to complete that survey. So if I come back into my platform due diligence tool, I can start a brand new evaluation whenever I like, but this is the one maybe I did last year, so I can just load this up, because once you've done it once, it will only take you a matter of seconds to refresh year after year. I'm just going to click on next. And the way the feature works, it's got all of these tabs along the top, and lo and behold, the tabs relate to Fact Sheet 12. So all of these bullet points are essentially replicated into these tabs here. And your job really, first time you run this, it's probably going to take 20 minutes or so. Just work your way through these tabs and specify what's a must-have, a nice-to-have, and not required. When it comes to fund types, what funds or portfolios do you need the platform to be able to offer you? So these are the portfolios currently saved under my portfolios. You can just specify, ticking them, which ones you need the platform to be able to offer. What tax wrappers? The 3 different tabs for functionality alone. You'll notice as well, a lot of them will have little light bulb icons that will give you a bit more information about what it's requiring or asking. Then tools, i.e., does the platform offer risk profiling tools and cash flow tools and DFM analysis tools, etc. Those DFMs we use, I need to ensure they offer X, Y, and Z. Accessibility, back office must have a integration with back office, for example. Support, what support do I require for my platform of choice, and then the final results. And the moment you click on next, and again when I first do this, it might take me 20 minutes or so to complete all of that, but then every single time I need to regularly do a platform due diligence, it's only going to take a matter of seconds, because my criteria probably hasn't changed. And the results aggregate everything together for me, tells me that Transact has met all of my requirements, 100%. It's met the vast majority of my nice to haves, 68. Gives me a league table, best to worst. And for my particular requirements, it then shows me any that has managed to hit all of my requirements gets 5 stars, then 4, then 3, then 2. So lo and behold, Transact has got 5 stars on every single one of them. So they've met all of my criteria. And then as I scroll through, I've got my platform provider, financial standing, which again, core part of the FCA Fact Sheet 12. There's the financial standing, all of those different providers. There's the credit ratings of every single one of them. And then the industry awards, going back 5 years of each one. Then you've got the service tab, which again will not load up unless you've done that survey. So complete the survey. This loads up. Again, core requirement of Fact Sheet 12, the reputation of that platform. And there's 5 different parts to that. Then it will also give you the overall methodology at the very bottom. Then the funds assets, it's able to offer you. Obviously, we only asked it to provide 5 different portfolios, so it gives you the yay or nay for each one of those on each platform. Then the tax wrappers. You'll notice as well on a lot of these tabs, it will specify the requirements not met or not being able to meet. So it will tell you those that have not met, must haves that weren't met, or nice to haves that weren't met. But the providers themselves actually then add a bit of color to that and explain why they're not able to meet them. And it might be a case of, okay, well, we can't meet this requirement, but that's because we offer it elsewhere over here. So that's quite neat. Again, you'll get all of that detail running on underneath. And then the functionality, tools, DFMs, all of the things that we specified. We use these 3 DFMs. So do the platforms offer those 3 in particular? Accessibility, support, T's and C's, the T's and C's for each platform. And when I click on the PDF icon, all of that information is then just aggregated into one enormous, great due diligence document of 60 pages that go through every single one of those tabs and convert it into a PDF. Give me that rich information. And essentially, I will now put that on file. I will then add fact sheet 12 on top of that. So if the FCA ever come knocking, or the regulator or compliance ever come knocking and ask me, how have I done my due diligence? I've got FCA fact sheet 12, which was my requirements for doing due diligence. And I've got this massive, great due diligence pack, which will now specify the reasons why I've chosen A, B, and C platform. So that's the platform tool in analytics, again, accessible from this main screen. And just finally, to wrap up, you've got guides as well in here and training as well on that specific feature. And any further questions, feel free to contact us using that tab below. Thanks very much for watching.